to the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. Phillip and friends break down the latest news in professional football every week. So let's get this thing started and snap the football. Hut, hike.
Well, everybody, welcome into the Cover 2 NFL podcast, your weekly look at all things pro football. I am your host, Phillip Jordan from Last Word on College Football and 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer. Dothan Woods Football. It is NFC North week here on the podcast. Of course, we're going through each and every division, previewing one each week. And I will be joined by Brian Jones from popculture.com to preview the NFC North. We go about 40 minutes, so it is a really in-depth preview of all four NFC North teams. And then after that, I'll go over some news around the National Football League and pro football as well. Before I do all that, though, let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. Find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can check out the show on YouTube over at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can also email me at sportstalkphilipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's preview the NFC North. All right, everybody, it is NFC North week here on the podcast. And joining me to talk the NFC North, I got it used to cover one of these teams, the Green Bay Packers, but now you can check them out over at popculture.com, talking all kinds of cool people. I was jealous. Got to talk to Paul Heyman. Just going to be honest with you. But it's Brian Jones from popculture.com, Trinity sports writer, does a little bit of everything. Awesome interviews over there. But Brian, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on again.
So I guess you are a Paul Heyman guy?
I am a Paul Heyman guy. And after talking to him, I'm definitely a Paul Heyman guy. It was a great conversation. I what you see on SmackDown and even Raw sometimes is what you get from Paul Heyman. So it was great talking to him about Money in the Bank, talking about Roman Reigns, the Usos. So really just a great conversation.
Who are some other cool ones you got coming up that you can share with everybody?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I actually recently got to talk to NFL legendary quarterback Drew Brees. He is actually doing a commercial, or he's filmed a commercial with his son about great clips. So that comes out tomorrow morning. So, yeah, be sure to check those. I'll have a couple stories about that interview out tomorrow morning. Also, last week I got to interview a skateboarding legend, Tony Hawk, talking about his new line of products that he has for Hot Wheels. So that should drop on Wednesday. And then on WWE, again, I get to talk to Angelo Dawkins, who's one half of the Street Profits. He's promoting SummerSlam, which is going to be in Nashville this Saturday. So I'll have a story on that probably on Friday. And I'm working on getting an interview with Ice Cube, just talking about some of the stuff he has going on. That should be on, I believe, Thursday afternoon. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. Got a chance to talk to a lot of cool people. I've talked to some very interesting people over these last couple of years. So be sure to check out popculture.com, popculture.com/sports. You can check out all my work there.
Since this is NFL podcast, Drew Brees, is he since he's not going to be at NBC, did he announce he's coming out of retirement when you interviewed him?
No, he didn't give any breaking news like that. I think right now he's just enjoying their retired life, spending a lot of time with his family. His kids are getting ready to go back to school, and he's been doing a lot of traveling. So I think he's really just enjoying everything retirement life has to offer. And I don't see him coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, I kind of, when it first announced he was leaving NBC, I said, is he coming back? And I said, I got to think about it more. Maybe he's not. Maybe he just wanted to retire. Maybe that wasn't the deal for him broadcasting. But NFC North, interesting division. Obviously, everybody listening know who the favorite in this division. But when you just hear NFC North going into the 2022 season, just what's some overall thoughts pop in your mind about this division?
Well, I think it's what it's been the last few years. It's pretty much the Green Bay Packers and everyone else. But I think what makes this division interesting is there, other than the Packers, the three teams have made some changes when it comes to head coaches and general managers. With the Lions, Dan Campbell's entering his second year. The Bears have a new head coach in Matt Eberflus, and then the Vikings have a new head coach in Kevin O'Connell. So these teams are hoping that with these changes that they made, they can overtake Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers, who's entering his fourth year, I believe, now. So it's a young division when it comes to the head coaches. And when it comes to the quarterbacks, obviously Aaron Rodgers is proven, and then you have guys that veteran guys like Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, who's seen a little bit of playoff, had a little bit of playoff success, but not to the level of Aaron Rodgers, and then Justin Fields, who's entering his second year. So it's an interesting collection of teams in the NFC North. It's just a matter of which one of these three teams, the Vikings, Lions, and Bears, can overtake the Packers if it's possible. I think a lot of things have to happen in order for that to come into fruition. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I do believe that, and even with the Packers, even though they're considered the favorite, they have question marks themselves, specifically at the wide receiver position. So it should be fun to watch to see how all this plays out.
Yeah, most definitely. Starting with the Bears, and for everybody that hasn't been checking out the last 2 weeks with the division previews, we'll go in alphabetical order. Chicago Bears, you mentioned they have a new head coach. Matt Eberflus is coming in. He was the Colts defensive coordinator. Colts had tremendous defenses the last 4 years with him. They were top defense in the NFL when it comes to turnovers, were the Colts when he was there. But obviously it's about Justin Fields, and look at that. I mean, he's super talented. Thought that when he was first at Georgia, obviously. Then he went to Ohio State, showed that ability. I got a player that can use his legs, but also I think does have a live arm, a good NFL arm, a solid arm. But, Brian, I look at what they have around him. I don't see how he can be successful with this roster. I mean, David Montgomery, he's a fine running back. The receiver position, Darnell Mooney's back. He had 81 catches last year, a little over 1,000 yards, but not a lot around him that's going to put fear in his defense. Allen Robinson's now gone to the Rams, so that's kind of my concern with the Bears. I mean, I'll just go and tell everybody I think the Bears are finishing last in this division. That's just my thoughts, because I don't think they've done a good job at putting good players around Justin Fields, which is going into his second year. In his first full year, you would assume, as the starter.
You're absolutely right. I think the Bears are just in a tough situation where you have this talented quarterback in Justin Fields who showed glimpses of what he can bring to the table last year, but he just has little help. I don't think the offensive line is that great. As you mentioned, David Montgomery is a solid running back. When it comes to the wide receivers, Darnell Mooney had a breakout performance last year. They also have Byron Pringle. They brought in former Packers wide receiver Equanimeous St. Brown. Solid receivers, but I don't think it's necessarily enough in terms of what you want Justin Fields to do. It's really, to me, I think the Bears, it's going to be a 2-3 year process with the head coach and the new general manager to get this team where it wants to go. I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know if they can have this ability to surprise some teams, because the talent's not there right now, and I don't think they really had the best draft. But I think Bears fans are going to be patient. When it comes to their history of quarterbacks, they haven't had a franchise quarterback. You have to go way back to the Sid Luckman days. Mm-hmm. Jim McMahon obviously led the Bears to the Super Bowl in '85, but he wasn't a franchise guy. He wasn't, a guy that could really just light it up. And the same thing with Jay Cutler. Statistically, he's one of the top players in Bears history in terms of the quarterback position, but he was never really a franchise type of quarterback. So I think what you see in Justin Fields is he has this ability. I know I followed him even before Georgia. He was one of the top, if not the top, high school quarterback in the country coming out of Harrison High School in Kennesaw, Georgia. So he has all the tools you need when it comes to today's version of the NFL quarterback. He can get the job done, but he's going to need some help. And I don't know if the Bears, what he has around him, the Bears can provide that help for Justin Fields. So it's going to be a process. It's going to be a rocky road for the Bears, I think, this season. But I think Bears fans are going to be patient with this team for at least for a couple of years.
Yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, when you look at what they've done, and look, you never know. You never know. This is the NFL. We see surprises all the time. And on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, last year they were solid statistical on statistics wise on defense. Anyways, trying to say that they were third overall. They were good against the pass. Were the best team in the league against the pass, but 12 against the run. But they do have some guys that were stalwarts there that are gone. Khalil Mack has gone to the Chargers. Akeem Hicks, he has gone as well. Robert Quinn comes back with 18.5 sacks. Now, we're recording this on Monday evening. So early on Monday, there was a report from NFL Network that it looks like Roquan Smith will hold out. The training camp unhappy with direction of negotiations for a possible contract extension. Of course, he's going into the 5th year of his rookie deal. So a reworked defense too as well, something the Bears you could rely on. I mean, like I said, we're not really used to the Bears lighting it up offensively, but defensively they've always done a good job of having a solid defense out there. So I'm kind of wondering too, new coaching staff, Eberflus going to change it up to there as well, go more of a nickel 4-3 scheme. So that's a transition for the Bears too as well. What's their defense going to look like? Because that has been the side of the ball these last few years they could rely on because the offense was not giving it to them.
Yeah, I think the biggest key for the Bears defense is getting Roquan Smith back in the mix. Really behind him, there's just not a lot. And again, a Georgia guy, followed his career throughout college. He's really proven to be one of the better inside linebackers in the NFL. And I think, secondary wise, they're going to be really young. It looks like Tyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker are going to have a chance to start. Eddie Jackson, after having strong first 2 years in NFL, the last 2 years haven't been that great for him. So he's looking for a bounce back the type of season. Hopefully in this new defensive scheme, he can get the job done. Robert Quinn, as you mentioned, 18 plus sacks last year. So there are some pieces there that the Bears can work with. And with this new look defense, you hope that it can only improve and only help the players that they have on the roster right now. But yeah, the key for the Bears moving forward defensively is getting Roquan Smith back. We don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully they can get something done in the early stages of training camp. But yeah, I think defensively they should be fine, even with this new scheme, because of what they have, and despite with a young secondary. I think, if anything, defensively, they're going to keep them in games. So I think Bears fans, if anything they had to look forward to, is this defense led by Roquan Smith.
Jumping over now to the Detroit Lions. And I got to say this, for a 3-13-1 team, they played hard. I mean, Dan Campbell had them playing hard. And then early in the year, they had a lot of close games. They had an overtime loss, and they had 6 other one possession, which I know NFL, a lot of the games, most of the games are decided. But still, they had a lot of games that were right there at the end. They just could not close the deal. I think Jared Goff played better toward the end of the year. And this is a big year for him. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Because I think he really has to have a really good year because, yes, he still has a few years left on his contract, but his contract is easier to get off of. It's not as much of a cap penalty going into this year. If they want to get rid of him, after this season, they'll have another first-round pick that they still have coming to them from the Matthew Stafford trade. So, I mean, I'm interested to see, do they keep that identity, play hard for Dan Campbell, but also when you look at the offense, it's got to be about Jared Goff. I think they actually have some decent skill position players. I think DeAndre Swift is a really guy you can build an offense around. He's good as a running back, over 600 yards rushing last year, but he also caught 62 passes. out of the backfield. They improved at receiver. They signed DJ Chark. They drafted James Williams. Of course, he won't be there to play until October. He got that ACL injury for Alabama toward the end of the year. Good offensive line. I kind of circle back with them offensively. It's all about Jared Goff.
It really is. And, the Lions bypassed quarterbacks in the draft this year. And if Jared Goff doesn't play well, with the quarterback class being very deep next year, you could see him going in that direction. I think Jared Goff is fine, but I think in order for the Lions to take that next step, win double their amount that they had last year and even more, that Jared Goff has to be more consistent. He played well down the stretch, which is one of the reasons why the Lions were able to go on a little bit of a run at the end of the season, because of those 3 wins, 2 were against playoff teams, the Cardinals and the Packers. So, I think they'll continue to play hard for Dan Campbell. I think they like what he brings to the table, and his coaching staff features former NFL players. So, from that perspective, the coaching perspective, they have everything in place. And as you mentioned, there is talent surrounding that squad. You talk about offensive line, Frank Ragnow, Panay Sewell, the running backs. You mentioned DeAndre Swift. I actually like Jamal Williams, a former Packers running back. Aiden Hutchinson, who they drafted in the first round. I think he fits perfectly in that Dan Campbell type of defensive scheme. So I really like the makeup of this team. Now, whether they'll make a push for the playoffs, that just remains to be seen. They could be one of the surprise teams that you see in the NFL each year. But again, it comes back to Jared Goff. He has to be consistent. If he can do that, what you saw from what he was in the Rams and when they went to the Super Bowl back in 2019, then I think the Lions can be one of these surprise teams in the NFL. So, that's going to be very interesting to watch, because I think if they're able to build on what they were able to do in the second half, or really the final part of the 2021 season, then I could see the Lions winning at least 6, maybe 7 games this year.
They got to start biting in kneecaps, like Dan Campbell said.
Oh yeah.
That is one of the all-timers of introductory press conferences for a head coach, I think, at any level of sports. Just the intensity he had, that line. I mean, that's always going to be one of the all-timers, I think.
It really is, and I know he got criticized for it, because it's not the typical coach speak you see in an introductory press conference. But I think based on the history of the Lions and all the struggles they have had throughout their history, I think this is a great change of pace. I think the players are responding to it right now, and if it leads to wins, then I think everyone else, the entire Lions community, will buy into it. Now, if it doesn't lead to wins, it could be kind of something like what we saw here in Atlanta with Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn brought a lot of fire, led the Falcons to a Super Bowl appearance, but after that, it was just downhill, and people got tired of it. So hopefully this his intensity can result into success. But I think, again, they have some pieces to where they can make a run, possibly, if not this year, the next year. And if that happens, then I can see Dan Campbell there for a very long time.
Yeah, and you touched on defense a little bit. They spent 6 of their 8 draft picks on the defense side of the ball. Of course, their first pick at number 2, they went with Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan. In the second round, they went defensive end with Josh Pascal out of Kentucky. So obviously, and they can't get any worse than they were last year defensively. They were 29th. I guess technically they can get worse, but everybody knows what I mean. 29th in total defense last year, 31st in scoring defense, batting against the quarterback, which you go get those defensive ends that proven they can get to the quarterback. So, and that's the thing with them. Defensively, attitude, Dan Campbell, and just getting players in there. They're going to be young. but obviously they know that, and they spent all that draft capital pretty much on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, I know, and I know Lions fans don't want to hear this, but I think you just have to be. It's kind of like what the Bears are going through now. You have to be patient because it's Dan Campbell's second year, it's the coaching staff's second year. They're still young and very in key positions, so it's just going to take some time. And I know in today's NFL, or really just sports in general today, there's not a lot of patience to be had. So, but if you want this team to be successful, if you want this team to be a Super Bowl contender down the road, then you have to give these players time to develop. You have to give these players time to have these ability to make mistakes. And I think being in the second year of Dan Campbell's system, I think defensively they're going to improve. I think Aiden Hutchinson's going to really put himself in the mix for Defensive Rookie of the Year because he's a guy, as I mentioned, fits into what Dan Campbell wants. He tries hard, he's going to give maximum effort every snap, and that's going to lead to results. So I'm really looking forward to what the Lions do offensively and defensively because with Dan Campbell, I think, as I mentioned, they have a chance to really do some good things in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about Super Bowl contenders, of course, the Packers, they expect to be that every year, and they have been that the last 3 years. They've won 13 games 3 straight years. Matt LaFleur is 39-10 as a head coach with the Packers, and he got a contract extension on Monday. Him and GM Brian Gutekunst both got extended, but it all comes down to the postseason now, and this ties in Aaron Rodgers too as well. Packers have not been to the Super Bowl since the 2010 season when they won. That's 12 years of a drought, and when you have a quarterback level Aaron Rodgers, you're not supposed to do that. Back-to-back MVPs for him. Of course, they traded Devontae Adams. He resigned with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, but then they traded Devontae Adams. Lost 13-10 in the divisional round, and when you look at receiving core, they also lost MVS. It wasn't just Devontae Adams. But you look at the group as Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. You got Sammy Watkins coming in through free agency. They did draft in the second round Christian Watkins. It's going to be an interesting team what they do with the passing game. I kind of have a feeling Aaron Rodgers, you would think the numbers are going to drop without Devontae Adams. But at the same time, the last 2 seasons, they're like 6-0, 7-0 without Devontae Adams. So it's an interesting thing. It's going to be very intriguing how this receiving core shakes out with them without Devontae Adams there, without MVS there. And who does Aaron – obviously he trusts Randall Cobb, but who's going to be the next guy?
This could be one of those things where you see Sammy Watkins, who's a veteran, who's been in the league for a while. He could have a kind of rejuvenated 2022 and make an immediate impact in that receiving core. And looking at the wide receiver position, Allen Lazard, he's going to be solid. I think he's going to put up solid numbers. Christian Watson's going to be a guy who could surprise some people, being the second round pick. But I think the way the Packers look at it is it's kind of like what Bill Belichick did with Tom Brady. Having the ability to make players around him better. So I think even you're not going to have a Devontae Adams type of receiver where he's going to have 120 receptions and 15 or 1,600 receiving yards. I don't think you'll see that from any of the Packers receivers, but I think you'll have guys who will have 700, 800, 900, maybe even 1,000 yards. You'll have a few of those guys like that because Aaron Rodgers can still play at a high level. And also, I think what will be key in the passing game is what they do in the run game. I think Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are a great 1-2 punch. And both can catch the ball in the backfield. So I think that's going to play into the passing game as well. The Packers don't have a number one receiver, but they have a bunch of guys who can contribute and get the job done. Specifically Randall Cobb, who, as you mentioned, has this trust with Aaron Rodgers because they've been together for many, many years. So I know the wide receiver core and the passing game for the Packers is going to be a question mark. I don't really think it is, just simply because Aaron Rodgers is going to spread the ball around, and I think that's going to pay dividends down the road. So, as for who will be that number one guy, that remains to be seen. But I think I'm really looking forward to see what Sammy Watkins does with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and you bring up Aaron Jones too. He's a good receiving back, so that's another person you have there that you can feature in your passing game. And like you said, him and AJ Dillon, it's a really good 1-2 punch. I mean, Dillon brings the more physicality, and then Aaron Jones is just a guy. He's a big play waiting to happen. And then that tight end is going to be another thing too. If Tonyan comes in, Robert Tonyan comes back in, and he's able to pick up where he left off before he got hurt last season. That's a big two for them there, because Aaron Rodgers and him would build up some trust too at the tight end position.
Oh, absolutely. And Robert Tonyan had a season-ending injury last year, and after having a really great 2020 campaign, getting him back is going to be big. They have Mercedes Lewis, who's getting up there in age, but he understands Matt LaFleur's offensive scheme perfectly, so he can contribute as well. So, overall, the passing game, I think it's going to be solid. You don't have Devontae Adams. You don't have necessarily a breakaway number one receiver, but I don't think this offense, or really this team, necessarily needs that. I think if they rely on the run game and Aaron Rodgers spreading the ball around, I think that will be better for this offense. And I think that could really lead to bigger and better things for the Packers moving forward. So I really like what they have at when it comes to pass catchers. So it's not anything extraordinary, but it's solid. And I think that's all you need when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers under center.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to look at defensively; they're going to be really good. They use their 2 first-round draft picks, getting Georgia players. Which the way the Georgia defense played last year, I don't blame you. That was an elite defense. A lot of guys. Obviously, anybody watching the SEC every week last year, you know how good that Georgia defense was. Inside linebacker Quan Walker, defense tackle Devontae Wyatt. Y'all add in with Kenny Clark up front. You got some good guys at outside linebacker, Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. Jair Alexander is a really good corner. They got a good secondary. So defensively, this could be another level with the Packers here. If that defense takes a step up from what they were last season, and they had some injuries here and there throughout the year, if they can stay moderately healthy, running the ball, playing defense, it may not be as much on Aaron Rodgers as it has been in the past. And like I said, defensively, that's going to be a very key for this team. If they take that next step, they were close to the top 10 in pretty much every category. If they get a little bit better, that makes the team even more dangerous.
You're absolutely right. And even when I was covering the Packers, they spent, time and years just trying to build this defense to help Aaron Rodgers, get back and really just help the team get back to what they were in 2010 when they had guys like Charles Woodson, A.J. Hawk, and Clay Matthews. And, I agree with you. I really like what they have. Devondre Campbell, former Falcon, had some really good years in Atlanta, then comes to Green Bay and it just takes off. And he's considered probably by many as the best linebacker in the NFL in terms of tackling. Jair Alexander was dealing with a shoulder injury, but he's going to be healthy and he's going to have a pretty productive year. I think Rasul Douglas, who came out of nowhere and really impressed everyone in Green Bay with his playmaking abilities. Eric Stokes, another Georgia guy coming into his second year. I really like what he can do. And the safeties, Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. Savage really didn't have the best 2021. Solid as a safety you can find in the NFL. A really great defensive, a really great nose tackle. I really like what the defense has done over the last few years and how the Packers are able to build this defense. And I think that's going to be the reason why I think the Packers are going to stay on top of the NFC North just because of what they have defensively. When you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers under center, and you have the defense that the Packers have built over the years, they're just going to be very difficult to stop week in and week out. So, yeah, I really believe in what the Packers have defensively, and I think because of that, if they're able to stay healthy, that's going to lead to a very successful season for Green Bay.
Yeah, and look, it all boils down to, they could go 13-4, win 13 games again. But when they get in the playoffs, that's going to be the big money question with this team too, because what they've done the last 3 years, not even getting to a Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers with the numbers he's put up and the success. If they get to that point again, it's kind of like, all right, it's time for you guys to step up and get past that hurdle and at least just get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and historically, if you look at what Aaron Rodgers done in the NFC Championship game, it hasn't been that great. He has a 1-4 record, and that one win was in 2010, and that was the game against the Bears where Jay Cutler took himself out of the game because of the injury, and Aaron Rodgers didn't play well in that game. So it's just a matter of it's really, with the Packers, not a matter of if they're going to win the NFC North or not or reach in the playoffs. They are a playoff Super Bowl caliber team. It's just a matter of having that success in the playoffs. Is or the other, as they just falter in the postseason. Last year, they really couldn't get anything going offensively, and that was a game where the 49ers didn't score an offensive touchdown. So it's just been frustrating for Packers fans to see this team stumble when it comes to postseason play. Now, how do they get past that? It's just a matter of execution. It's just a matter of mental toughness. It's just a matter of just getting the job done. I don't think it's really it's not rocket science. It's just a matter of playing like what you have in the regular season. Now, I know the postseason, it's intensified and teams are going to give everything they have, but if the Packers played their brand of football like they've had in the regular season, there's no reason why they can't make the Super Bowl. I know there's going to be, when it comes to the NFC, there's going to be teams like, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Los Angeles Rams, who are defending Super Bowl champions. They're going to be after a team like the Packers. But I really do believe if Aaron Rodgers is able to play at a high level, spread the ball around, and the defense is able to play like they have been playing in 2021, I don't see why they can't, have success in the postseason and reach the Super Bowl and win their first Super Bowl in 12 years.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of people in Green Bay if that happens, and it will really change things when Aaron Rodgers, because right now he's just sitting with that one Super Bowl. So finally, the Minnesota Vikings, and they changed head coaches. They're going away from defensive-minded Mike Zimmer. They're bringing in Kevin O'Connell, who was with the Rams, offense coordinator, first year as head coach, and he didn't call plays with the Rams too, so that he's going to be doing that with the Vikings. And I kind of feel like I'm going to say the exact same thing I just said about the Lions, but it's kind of like to 1,000 more degrees with it. And that's Kirk Cousins. He puts up good numbers, over 4,000 yards passing last year, 33 touchdowns, 7 receptions, but he falls apart in big games. And he's not that kind of quarterback that's going to – he's not like an Aaron Rodgers, as we were just talking about, that, yes, may not have the supporting cast around him, but he can lift those guys up. He makes his teammates better. Kirk Cousins is a guy, he needs a lot of really good players around him. And, of course, he has that with Justin Jefferson and, Adam Thielen at receiver. He's got a good running back in Dalvin Cook. Offensive line is a little sketchy. I think it is kind of interesting with Kevin O'Connell. He was with the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders, when Kirk Cousins was there in 2017. So they do know each other. But it's Kirk Cousins. It's kind of like I said with Jared Goff with the Lions itself, a lot more heated there. It's interesting what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins this year, because you feel like if his doesn't pan out, if he doesn't do better, if it's kind of the same old same, they're 8-8 or 8-9 and don't make the playoffs, I have a feeling they're going to try to look for a different quarterback. So it's a big year for Kirk Cousins.
Oh, absolutely huge. I think, as you mentioned, Kirk Cousins has the ability to put up 4,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns, and throw less than 10 interceptions each season. But when it comes to games that matter the most, he just doesn't play as well as you would like to. And he has all the tools and the weapons to be successful in 2022. Obviously, with Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Irv Smith Jr., and he has some weapons to work with, along with a solid offensive line. There's no reason that the Vikings offensively can do some big things in 2022. But again, it comes down to, can Kirk Cousins take that next step with Kevin O'Connell? Coming from that Sean McVay coaching tree, the Vikings are hoping that O'Connell can get Cousins to play at another level. And if that happens, then the Vikings could compete with the Packers for the NFC North. I think they're really the only team that can compete with the Packers in the NFC North, but it all comes down to Kirk Cousins. If he can make those key plays in those games against Green Bay, or really just NFC North opponents, then the Vikings will take that next step and win 10, 11, 12 games. If not, then they're just going to be a 500, sub 500, below 500 squad, and then you'll have to really reevaluate the quarterback position and probably go after one of these guys like C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young in next year's draft. So this is a crucial year for Kirk Cousins. And if he falters, then he has to ask himself, where does he go from here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an intriguing thing, because I think there was even talk. Some people were speculating that they were going to move off of him after last season, but he is back. He is with the Vikings, and defensively they were bad. And when you're coached like Mike Zimmer and you make your name with defense, back-to-back years they were giving up on average over 400 yards a game. So you just can't do that when you have a defensive head coach. They can't get any, they can only go up. They were the 30th ranked defense in the NFL last year. Offensively, we know what they could do. We just mentioned it. If Kirk Cousins is playing his game like he can play, distributing the ball, offensively they're good. Defensively that's going to be a big thing for them. Just be average on that side of the ball, and maybe you have a shot at playoffs.
Yeah, they brought in Ed Donatel, a long-time defensive coordinator, been around the NFL for many, many years, to help lead that defense. And I think Mike Pettin is on that defensive staff too. But I think Ed Donatel is not going to get the Vikings to be the number one defense in the league, but I think he can get them at average, and I think they'll improve significantly. I think bringing in Zadarius Smith, who spent the last few seasons with the Packers, making an impact there, I think he's going to really help that pass rush. Him and Daniil Hunter is going to be a good combination. Eric Kendricks is a solid inside linebacker. Patrick Peterson, a legendary cornerback who still has some ability to make plays. They drafted Andrew Booth Jr., Lewis Cine as safety, University of Georgia alum there, really great safety. And obviously they have Harrison Smith, as solid as they come when it comes to strong safety. Again, it's almost like what the Vikings have offensively. Minnesota has some pieces defensively. It's just a matter of being put in the right place to make plays. And I think Donatel will do that. I think what Zimmer brought, I think it was just played out. So I think that's what led to the struggles the Vikings had defensively the last two seasons. But as I mentioned, Donatel should be able to get the Vikings defense back on track. And I think if they're ranked in the middle of the pack, that's going to be a major improvement. So I think defensively they're going to have a bounce back season compared to what they were the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of wild. You think of a Mike Zimmer team giving up that kind of yardage and points, but that's where they've been the last 2 years. So when you look at this division, and I think we've both kind of hinted at where we lean in here, but
yeah,
I mean, for me, I got Packers, Vikings, Lions, and Bears. But for you, what's your predicted order of finish with the NFC North?
Yeah, I think Packers will be in first. I think they'll probably be 12-5 and 13-4. The Vikings, I think, will come in second. I think they'll be 9-8, probably in that range. And then I think it will be the Lions and Bears, and I think they'll both actually end up with the same record, kind of 6-11. Maybe the Bears will. I think 6-11 for the Bears will be the ceiling. I think maybe they'll win 5 or 4 games, but I think they can get to 6. But I think it will be the Lions coming in third and the Bears coming in at fourth.
Yes, sir. We're in agreement on that one. So we'll see. It kind of feels like a couple safe picks there. I mean, the Lions and Bears, I guess they could swap out, but we shall see how this division goes and who goes to the playoffs. Of course, we both think the Packers are going to win the division. And Brian, I appreciate you coming on, previewing NFC North. I always appreciate you coming on. Really great football opinions you have and inside and your analysis breaking down the NFC North. But if people want to follow you online, where can they find you? Where can they check out all the great work you're doing over at popculture.com?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on again. Again, my name is Brian Jones. I'm a sports and entertainment writer for popculture.com. You can find my work at popculture.com or popculture.com/sports. As I mentioned, a lot of great interviews coming up. Drew Brees, Tony Hawk, Ice Cube. So be on the lookout for that. And also, tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to talk to the cast of the upcoming Prime Video series, A League of Their Own, based on the 1992 film. So, and that series will come out on August 12th, I believe. Yeah, August 12th. So be sure to check that out. Again, that's popculture.com, popculture.com/sports. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's Brian Jones _93. I try to post my stories on there, post some videos I do as well. So again, that's Brian Jones _93.
All right, sounds good, Brian. I appreciate the time. And remember, everybody, there's no crying in baseball. And I had to use that line from the old movie. Had to do it. But anyways, Brian, I appreciate the time. And I look forward to talking again sometime down the road.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me on.
All right, once again, thanks to Brian Jones from popculture.com for coming on the show this week to preview all things NFC North. And be sure to catch up with Brian as the football season goes on. Now, I got some news items in pro football and NFL I want to go over real quickly. 5 things. And like I said, I'm going to get a quick 140 minutes there, so I don't want to make the show too long. But some quarterback news. First up, this dates back to last week. Kyler Murray gets a new contract extension of 5 years through 2028. It is $230.5 million with $160 million guaranteed. Makes him the second highest paid quarterback annually behind Aaron Rodgers and best Deshaun Watson by $500,000. But Deshaun Watson's contract is fully guaranteed. Obviously, Kyler Murray's is not. He'll get $30 million in year 1, $68 million over 2 years, and $106.15 million over the first 3 years. Kind of interesting. Obviously, he wasn't happy after the season. He scrubbed all his Arizona Cardinals pictures, any mention that he was part of the team on his social media, which that seems to be the end thing to do now. If you're a player, if you get upset with your team, just delete everything off social media that has anything to do with you. And he eventually got his way, but players seem to be doing that a lot. He's not the first player to do that. He won't be the last. But interesting, this week, that was Thursday, Friday, where that news came out. But on Tuesday, an unprecedented clause said by many looking at the contract, stating he must study film for 4 hours a week, will need to study material provided to him by the club in order to prepare for club's next upcoming game. He will receive a credit for doing such task. Failure to meet this will mean money will be deemed to be in default of his contract. Look, it's in there for a reason. This clause is there. Obviously, he has not been doing this, or they don't feel he's been doing this. And I think it's pretty bad when you have to put this in a contract for a quarterback to do what they're supposed to do. I mean, this is something quarterbacks are supposed to just do. I don't think Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen have this clause in their contracts. They do the work. And this is not talking about the film study he does while he's with the team. This is like independent stuff. And when you want to be a great at that level, you just do these things. And obviously he's not doing them. Kind of reminds me of Michael Vick. There's always thought that he didn't do the proper things that you're supposed to do. Jamarcus Russell's another one that was a bust. So Kyler Murray, this is very interesting. I think it's kind of sad in a way that you have to put this in the contract. We'll see. Maybe he won't mess it up, but having to put that in the contract, it says a lot to me about Kyler Murray. Some more quarterback news real quick on these next two. Joe Burrow to have an appendectomy within the next 48 hours, but that came out on Tuesday. This is routine. He should be fine. They just started training camp, but he should be fine. Nothing to worry about here. But I'm really intrigued with the Bengals coming up this year. Can they be a playoff team again? Because the AFC is going to be tough. I don't think it's a lock. And everybody said, they'll just be back at Super Bowl. You look at the AFC, it's going to be hard for them to go back-to-back AFC champions. 49ers, the other quarterback news. 49ers commit to Trey Lance. Kind of saw this coming. You kind of figure this. Jimmy Garoppolo has been cleared to practice with the shoulder injury. Kyle Shanahan said, we have moved on to Trey. So now they're looking to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, find a place for him, a trade. It's kind of hard when you look around the league. I mean, where's he going to go? Maybe Seattle, but are the 49ers going to trade him within the division? Probably going to ask a lot. Or are the Seahawks happy with, Geno Smith and Drew Lock at quarterback? I remember seeing something about the Falcons maybe, and the Browns were a conversation, even because we know Deshaun Watson's not going to be playing. Would the Browns make a deal for him? It's quite interesting with Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't see there's any place for him to land, really. He's an average quarterback. He's not bad. He's not great. But where does he land? And that's kind of the thing with him with this whole deal that I'm kind of it's kind of this late in the game. It's going to be hard for him to find a team. But be on a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal, have a really good year. Maybe he could land somewhere else and get another long-time contract. So Julio Jones is signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the fourth topic here in the news segment. He was released by the Titans in March. He agrees to a 1-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This really makes the Buccaneers loaded at the receiver position. A lot of playmakers surrounding Tom Brady. Ari Jones, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who is coming off an ACL. So look out for that, how he comes back from that injury. Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, and Brashon Perriman. They also signed Russell Gage this offseason, who was a teammate of Julio Jones in Atlanta, to replace Rob Gronkowski. They signed former Vikings tight end Kyle Rudolph, who's a solid piece there. So they're loaded. They have plenty of weapons for Tom Brady to use this upcoming season. So a good spot. But with Julio, it's been one of the things he struggled with his NFL career. Terrific career, Hall of Famer in my opinion. But he doesn't stay healthy. He doesn't catch a lot of touchdown passes either, which is kind of weird. He did in Atlanta. And then he didn't play a lot with the Titans. So we'll see. He's not asked to be the number one guy. He's probably second or third, maybe fourth option here. So he's not going to be that guy. It's a 1-year contract, kind of a prove-it deal. You play great here, you're going to get a bigger contract somewhere else. But he has that injury issue. So we'll see. Can he stay on the field? I think it's a big question for Tampa Bay. And then finally, some outside the NFL news. Because as I say at the top, this is, yes, the Cover 2 NFL podcast where I talk all things pro football once a week. So the XFL announced the cities finally. They will have 3 teams in Texas, Arlington, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And the other cities will be Las Vegas, Orlando, St. Louis, Seattle, and D.C. Teams that were in the XFL, I guess, 2.0 were Dallas, which is Arlington, Houston, St. Louis, Seattle, and D.C. So Las Vegas, Orlando, and San Antonio are new. No California teams and no team in New York, which I think is smart. I don't think those teams ever really attended well. So very interesting. And then let's go back from the original XFL. Las Vegas, Orlando are the only ones that had teams there. I'm glad Orlando. I'm always lean toward these Orlando teams and these upstart and alternate leagues. So I'm excited Orlando's got a team there. See how Las Vegas does. That'd be kind of interesting how that situation works out for them there. And the coaches for these teams, Bob Stoops, the only returning coach. He'll coach the Arlington Dallas team. Wade Phillips will coach Houston. Hines Ward will coach San Antonio. Las Vegas will be coached by Rod Woodson. Orlando will be coached by Terrell Buckley. Remember, he played at Florida State. St. Louis will be coached by Anthony Beck. Seattle will be by Jim Haslett, former NFL head coach. And then D.C. will be Reggie Barlow. So I'm excited for this reason. The XFL is going to kick off the week after Super Bowl. And then in late April, while the end of their season is going, the USFL will kick off once again. We've got the CFL going on also in the summer. And then you got the college football and NFL kicking off in the fall. So there will not be a week without some form of football on over the next calendar year plus. So very, very good stuff if you're just a football degenerate like myself. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Cover 2 NFL podcast. Please go check out my college football podcast, Talking College Football. Fun shows this week. We do 2 of them a week. On Tuesday, I was joined by Matt Marshall from the Orlando Sentinel. We broke down the ACC, kind of talked about some realignment. That's really the topic with any guest I have right now with everything going on with that college football. Then on Thursday, I'll be joined by Adam Spencer from Saturday Down South. We'll preview the SEC on that podcast. And then next week here, haven't had a guest locked up yet, but the goal is to break down the AFC North. Be looking forward to that. Got Jay Stevens on the College Football Podcast next Tuesday. We're going to talk Big Ten Media Days. Haven't nailed down the second guest next week for the College Football Podcast, but should be fun. High school football season's right around the corner. College football season's around the corner. The NFL, there's CFL. You can watch that on ESPN, ESPN Plus. Plenty of football stuff going on right now, and it's a fun time indeed with football season upon us. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. Also on YouTube, go to the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel, hit subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and leave me a comment on one of the videos. Leave a comment there. I will read it too as well on a future edition. Always email me at sportstalkphilipjordan@gmail.com. And hope everybody has a great week. Check out the College Football Podcast on Thursday. I've already recorded that one. It was a really good one with Adam Spencer talking all things SEC football. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.